I want to get to our Q&A now.
Yeah, that scene right there just goes to show you how much passion surrounds this very issue. It's a similar scene playing out really across the country as all of these questions loom about what is going to happen if and when this ruling comes down. One of those being, what could we see the effect on politics be? Yeah,
and political science professor from UTSA, the chair of the political science and geography department, Jon Taylor, joins us. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Jon. Talk about, how would you describe what happened last night with this political leak of this draft copy?
I got to say, I was checking my Twitter feed last night, and I said, "Holy crap!" And my wife was like, "What's wrong?" I said, "You're not going to believe this." She's like, "What?" I mean, it's had just a bomb-like effect on politics in the last 24 hours.
And just this month, you know, we're talking a few minutes ago about how we have a big runoff in our area. We've got elections underway right now. So let's start with the races that you see really feeling the most effect from this decision, if and when we do see these details come out from the Supreme Court officially.
Well, I think we're going to see an impact definitely in CD 28 between Congressman Cuellar and Jessica Cisneros. Cisneros has been pushing really hard regarding abortion already. We've seen tons of ads. The Air War in particular has been talking about that. And then we look at the Attorney General's race, both the Democratic and Republican Party runoffs, particularly the Democratic Party. There was a lot of discussion just in the last 4 or 5 hours or so between the two candidates about the issue of protecting a woman's right to choose, all that sort of stuff. On the Republican side, you've got Ken Paxton, who's the guy who actually led litigation and actually defended Texas in the Supreme Court, among other places. You got George P. Bush, who actually went to Washington today and was standing in front of the Supreme Court, basically with the pro-life side. So it's absolutely going to impact those races. And we're not even talking about the fall yet. Beto O'Rourke has already called for a rally in Houston this weekend. Surprisingly, the governor's not said a thing yet, although I'm sure that's coming soon. Lieutenant governor has, but not the governor.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting today that we did not hear from Governor Abbott in a reaction. Obviously, the lieutenant governor embracing, if this is actually true and what the Supreme Court wanted to do, embracing that ruling. And the Jessica Cisneros, Henry Cuellar race, I mean, she was running these ads against Cuellar with abortion being at the center issue even before this ruling came out. So she's kind of doubling down on that. But what do you think the implications are nationwide? I mean, I think there are a lot of people that thought 2022 was going to be a very bad year for Democrats. Does this change that landscape at all? Is this a powerful enough issue to drive people to the polls that maybe weren't going to be there before?
I think it's a wake-up call to Democrats in particular, the Democrats, especially the midterm election, where they may have been complacent. They may have been thinking already, oh, it's going to be a bad year for us. Biden has, not very good approval ratings and such. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this issue, which is a key issue in Republican Democratic Party politics. You got to think that it's going to energize voters, particularly younger voters who are really interested in this issue. If they can't get them to the polls on this, they're hopeless for 22 and even into 24.
And that's a good point. I mean, you talked about how we're not even to the fall yet. Well, we're not even to 2024 yet, much less 23. But already there's talk about what this could mean for the presidential race.
Absolutely. You're talking now about abortion being front and center when candidates are talking about potential appointees to the Supreme Court, future appointees to the Supreme Court. You're talking about what a president may or may not do in terms of supporting abortion rights. Right now, you have a bill that's been passed by the House, but is mired in the Senate, and the threat of filibuster, in particular by Senator Manchin from West Virginia, that likely means that any attempt by Democrats right now to try to codify Roe versus Wade is not going to happen, which means if the Supreme Court rules as we think they may, now you're going to have a discussion in the 24 election about, are you going to support or not support some sort of law that basically overturns the Supreme Court decision, which, by the way, is not easy to do to begin with. Usually it takes another Supreme Court decision or a constitutional amendment.
There are obviously you get on social media and there are a lot of people trying to prognosticate exactly what this means. But if we just look at Texas, and even closer, we look just at our KSAT viewing area in San Antonio, does this have implications for the state house race, the seat that Lyle Larson is leaving behind? Does it have implications for the Tony Gonzalez race in South Texas? We've already talked about the Cuellar Cisneros thing. Does it even go down as far as the county judge race? I mean, do you think that's going to be an issue in that race?
I'm not sure in the county judge race, but I would say in state house and state senate seats, I think you are going to see this as an issue play out, especially in those seats in San Antonio and elsewhere where we have relatively either competitive race or one in which you've got an incumbent who's leaving, therefore it's an open seat. This issue will play out on both sides. Republicans will say, look, it's energizing us as well as pro-life voters. So both sides may see, an uptick in at least in voter turnout as a result of just this one issue. Although I should caution, usually one issue, abortion, doesn't energize Republicans as much as border issues do, but abortion tends to energize Democrats more. So we'll see how it plays out by the time we get to November.
And we have both those issues to talk about in the upcoming elections. And before we let you go here, I want to be clear, make sure that everybody understands. You helped us explain the trigger law that's in place right now in Texas. So if this ruling does come down officially from the Supreme Court, that would take effect banning abortions in this state. But essentially, this ruling, if it were to come to pass, it just leaves it up to states to decide how they'll assess abortion.
Correct. It basically returns it essentially a regulation of abortion to state rights and state control. Now, one could say, well, that's a victory for federalism. Maybe, maybe not, because now you're talking about how it's spread out in terms of states that don't have abortion, don't allow abortions, those that do. In Texas, you're talking about when Texas, assuming the trigger law goes into effect, assuming the Supreme Court does its thing, you're now talking about the ability of a person to be able to go get an abortion. The travel distance on average is going to be 600 miles or more. You're literally talking New Mexico or Colorado.
Wow. Jon Taylor, political science professor, University of Texas, San Antonio. Always appreciate your time and your insight, sir.
Always happy.